Good morning, guys. Today we're going to look at Mini-Q3, What is Density? If you want to follow along in your textbook, it's on pages 24 through 29. You will also have a reading quiz after this lesson on Chapter 1, Section 2, which is pages 24 through 29 as well. So let's go ahead and get into this here. Today's plan is going to be to look at what is density and review the concept of density through some problems of real life objects. So here we go. Today's plan, number one, we're going to calculate the densities of 10 objects. And I'm going to go kind of quickly through these objects. Please pause once I get to one of the objects so you can write the information down and then continue on after that. Number two, you're going to make a data table as seen on the next slide. Then you're going to complete it as we go along. Once again, just pause after I show you the data table and then you can complete that in your notebook. Number three, after you've done all the problems, you're going to complete a Google form, which is called EQ2 density problems, and you're going to choose your correct answers that were on your data table from this lesson. And then finally, you're going to read Chapter 1, Section 2 and complete the Measuring Matter reading quiz just like we did with Section 1. You can read the section and complete the quiz at the same time. Please feel free to use your textbook while you're completing the quiz. That's what it's meant for. So there you go. Those are the things we're going to do today. Let's go ahead and get to it. Here's the data table I want you to copy in your notebook. So normally in class, we'll do this as a lab. So we're going to try to bring this to you as lab-like as possible. So go ahead and write this data table down. You're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns there, numbered 1 through 10 on the left. Then a next column for object, next column for mass, volume, density, and then finally we're going to say, does it float or sink in water? So go ahead and pause the video and write this data table down. Okay, we're back. You have the data table written down in your notebook. You're going to take these answers of the densities of these objects, and you're going to then complete that Google form, which is attached to the assignment on Google Classroom. All right, so once again, we're going to go through these objects. You need a calculator with you, or you need to be able to use the calculator on your computer. You need a pen or pencil, writing down your objects' masses, volumes, and densities on your data table. And we also need our equation. So go ahead and write down our equation. Density equals mass over volume. So today what you're going to do is, in order to complete the density, you need to figure out the mass, figure out the volume, and then take mass divided by volume to get density. And here is object number 1. Object number 1 in your data table is an apple. Its mass is 90 grams. Its volume is 100 centimeters cubed, or cubic centimeters. Remember we talked about that. And now you're going to complete the density of this object and then say, will it float or sink in water? So let's do this one together. And I'm going to pull up my calculator here and show you how we'll calculate the density of this object together with this one. So everybody should get this one right. So number one, you need to figure out what is the formula. And the formula is mass, which is 90 grams, divided by volume, which is 100 centimeters cubed, or 100 cubic centimeters. So on our calculator, we take 90 divided by 100, and we get 0.9. All right, so the number part of your answer is 0.9. And for all of these answers, we're going to round to the nearest tenth. So we're rounding to the first decimal place, just like we did last class with those first 3 problems of the cubes. So we're going to round this to 0.9, or we don't need to round this one because it's already there, 0.9. And our unit is grams per centimeter cubed, or grams per cubic centimeter. And then we have to ask ourselves, all right, is this going to float or sink in water? And if you've ever bobbed for apples, I don't know if you've ever done that game in the fall where the apples are sitting in a bucket of water, the apples float. all right, and you try to get the apples out of the water. I don't think we'll be playing that game anytime soon, will we? But the moral of the story is if an object has a density that is less than 1, all right, and this object's density, this apple's density is 0.9, which is barely less than 1, but you know what? It's less than 1. So if an object's density is less than 1, it will float in water. So for this one, together, we would have density is 0.9 grams per centimeter cubed, and then we write float in our data table. All right? So once again, as we go through these, we'll do a couple together. Feel free to pause the video at any time, rewind it, try to listen to how we go over the problems if you need more information. Also, you'll find these problems on the student notes. I meant to mention that. So please check your student notes, EQ2 student notes, and you'll see these problems or these slides on your notes. Okay, object number 2 on your data table. Object number 2 is an aluminum block. So we'll write object number 2, aluminum block. Its mass is 135 grams. Its volume is 50 cubic centimeters. You guys go ahead, pause the video, try to calculate the density of this aluminum block, and then tell if it'll float or sink in water. Okay, you're back. You figured out the density, or you just waited for me to pause there and come back after 5 seconds. So let's take a look at what you got. Number 1, we have to clear out our calculator and go 135, right? Because remember, density equals mass divided by volume. So 135 divided by 50. And we get an answer of 2.7, so it's already rounded to the nearest tenth. We don't have to round it. So for our density, we get 2.7 grams per centimeter cubed. And since that number, 2.7, is more than 1, that aluminum block will sink. Okay? Good. Got it. Great. Let's go on to number 3. Number 3 is a copper coin. Now this one I'm not going to tell you the answer on. So I want you to try to figure this one out by taking mass divided by volume. So once again, you plug in 66 divided by 7. Get your answer. If you need to round it, and then the unit is grams per centimeter cubed. And then say if it floats or sinks in water. So go ahead and pause the video and calculate. Okay, we're back with this one. Number 4 is an oak block. Its mass is 47 grams. Its volume is 78 centimeters cubed. Once again, pay attention. We're on number 4 on your data table. Calculate the density of number 4 by taking its mass, divided by its volume, get the density, and then say float or sink in water. You go ahead and pause the video and do that. Okay, number 5 on our assignment today of density problems is an ice cube. Its mass is 40 grams. Its volume is 44 cubic centimeters. Go ahead, calculate the density. Make sure you have the correct unit, which would be grams per centimeter cubed or grams per cubic centimeter. And then go ahead and say if it floats or sinks in water. And if you look at ice in water, you should see what number you should get. Remember, if it's under 1, an object floats in water. If it's over 1, an object sinks in water, because water's density is 1 gram per cubic centimeter, or 1 gram per milliliter. So go ahead and pause the video and figure it out. Number 6, we have honey. And I showed you the answer right away. Sorry about that. But I wanted to do this one together because we have a new unit here, ml. And I've capitalized the L just to show you that it's actually an L and not a 1. This is a milliliter, all right? A milliliter equals a cubic centimeter. So a milliliter and a cubic centimeter are the same thing. The difference is we use milliliter if we're measuring a liquid material, and we use a cubic centimeter if we're measuring a solid material. All right, so honey is a liquid, right? And we don't measure its volume in cubic centimeters in science class. We measure its volume in milliliters. And we'll talk more about that later. But for now, when you see a liquid, you know it's a milliliter. And we're going to go ahead and do this one together just as kind of a catch up to see how you're doing. So number 6, honey, 35 grams is its mass, 25 milliliters is its volume. Go ahead and calculate its density and say if it will sink or float in water. So we get 35 divided by 20. Whoops, no we don't. Clear that out. 35 divided by 25. And we get 1.4 as a density. All right, and this one is 1.4 grams per milliliter. Okay, it's not grams per cubic centimeter because our volume is in milliliters, not in cubic centimeters. Once again, because this object is liquid and not solid. And then, even though it's a liquid, it can sink or float in water. So if you've ever seen honey in iced tea or honey in tea, you see that it sinks to the bottom. It sinks to the bottom because it's denser than water. Remember, water's density is 1 gram per milliliter, so honey will sink. Number 7, rubbing alcohol. So this is object number 7. Its mass is 29 grams. Its volume is 36 milliliters. Go ahead and pause the video, calculate the density, float or sink in water. Number 8, a gold nugget. Gold is a very dense element, so you're probably expecting this density to be a little higher than the ones you've gotten before. So number 8, gold nugget, 206.5 grams, 10.7 cubic centimeters as a volume. Remember, we're going to round our density to the nearest tenth, so the first decimal place. So go ahead and calculate the density and float or sink in water, and pause the video. Number 9 is another liquid. So once again, remember our volume is in milliliters here. This is vegetable oil. And if you've ever seen vegetable oil in water, you probably can guess what its density will be, around, or at least less than or over 1. Its mass is 59.1 grams. Its volume is 65.7 milliliters. Calculate the density, float or sink in water, pause the video. Okay, last one. We have a little challenge object here. Okay, this is our last object, number 10, osmium block. Osmium's an element. In fact, this is the densest element. So this element's answer, I'll give you a little hint, should be even higher than gold's answer. So look at gold's answer there, object number 8. This answer should be even higher. Except this one, I'm not giving you the volume. So if we look at the mass, we have 406.8 grams as this object's mass, osmium. And there it is over to the left, this chunk of osmium here. But we're going to pretend we have a block of osmium with right angles, and we can calculate its volume. So in order to calculate the volume here, we're going to use the volume of a rectangular prism from math class. So volume equals length times width times height. So I give you the dimensions here. Figure out the volume, then figure out the density. And I'm probably guessing you know if this thing's going to float or sink in water. So go ahead and figure this guy out and pause the video. Okay, so we're back. We should have a completed data table. I think I've given enough time for you guys to kind of figure this out, rewind some things if you need to. You should have 1 through 10 objects. Please feel free to rewind and replay if you need to. Go to the student notes uh, to look at these slides if you want to, so you don't have to listen to me talk again and go through these problems. But I hope you've had a chance to practice some of these problems. We'll go over more of these in class. And remember, once again, look at today's plan just as kind of a recap. We calculated all density of those 10 objects. You made a data table, right? And that should be completed by this point. Now you're going to go to Google Classroom. You're going to find this EQ2 density problems. It should make sense now. If you look at that form, you're going to choose the correct answer that you came up with from 1 through 10. If you didn't come up with the exact right answer that I came up with, choose the closest one, all right? And you'll see a score that you get on that for accuracy on your problems there. And then finally, after you've done that, you're going to read Chapter 1, Section 2 and complete the Measuring Matter reading quiz. So we've got a lot of work here today. Make sure you stay focused. Please email me if you have any questions or concerns, but if not, I will see you next live Zoom. Take care. Have a good day.